In lesson 3.3, we look at how to add and subtract polynomials. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to simplify expressions by adding and subtracting polynomials. Now, we just got out of a lesson which dealt a lot with exponents and things like that. That's going to come up to play a little bit more in the multiplying polynomials. The adding and subtracting polynomials, well, that's something that we've actually seen before. All right. So polynomials are just like numbers. We can add, we can subtract them, and all the various algebraic properties that we know from numbers apply with polynomials too. So what we're going to do is we're going to add and subtract polynomials. Now, adding and subtracting polynomials is actually what we did way back in section 1.2. We simplified expressions, and the way we simplified expressions was that we combined like terms. And so adding and subtracting polynomials is basically the same thing as combining like terms with a little bit of flair. So when we say like terms, hopefully this is a reminder, like terms means that we have the same variables to the same powers. So like 5x and 7x are like terms. However, 3x squared is not a like term with 8x. Like terms obviously can be rewritten a little bit. You can write, for instance, 7 times a times b. Since we have like variables a, b, and we have a, b here multiplying by each other, those are like terms. However, if we have 9a times b squared and 5b times a squared, well, because you square the b here, but you square the a over there, those are not like terms. One other thing about like terms is that if you have terms with multiple variables in them, the order is not important. So we have r squared c to the fourth t. If you rewrote that as c to the fourth t times r squared, that and that are like terms. So like terms have to have the same variable with the same exponent, although the order doesn't matter. Also notice that coefficients don't matter either, right? If you have 5 and 7, those are alike. 6.3 and pi as your coefficients, that's perfectly okay. So coefficients can be anything we want, but the variables have to match up in order to add. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some instructor-led problems right now of how to add and subtract polynomials. Okay, so let's start with the basic principle here. We have 2x minus 6 plus 4x plus 6. Now, what you should do when you look at a problem like this and you say you want to simplify is you can say you should ask yourself which are like terms. Now, the like terms are the 2x and the 4x. Those are alike because they have the same variable, obviously to the same power. So 2x and 4x are alike, but also minus 6 and plus 6 are alike. So what we do when we combine like terms is we're going to take 2x and add 4x. When you combine those, you get a 6x. Notice that we didn't change the exponents here. When we add, this is like saying we have we have 4 x's and we're going to combine that with 2 x's. How many total x's are we going to get? We're going to get a total of 6 x's. So when you combine like terms, you're just adding the coefficients and the variables don't change in terms of the exponents. Now, when you add a minus 6 and a plus 6 together, that adds to 0. So in this example, The answer would be 6x plus 0. Now, that plus 0 really doesn't need to be there. Whoops. Because when you add 0 to anything, it just goes away. So the final answer is simply 6x. All right, so that's the simplified form. If you want, go ahead and try problems numbers 2 and 3 on your own. Push pause on the video and try problems 2 and 3 on your own. All right, hopefully you did that. So problem number 2 here. We have a 2x to the third and we have a 5x to the third. When you combine that, you get a total of 7x to the thirds, right? So we combine the coefficients, 2 plus 5 is 7, and then that, because they're both x to the thirds, you still get an x to the third. We have 4x squared and minus 8x squared, be careful there. Minus 8 and positive 4 add to a minus 4 or negative 4, so you're getting negative 4x squared in terms of the x squared terms. When we add a minus 3x with a plus 5x, that is a plus 2x. And then you combine 6 and minus 2. When you combine that, you get a positive 4. So the polynomial that you get when you add these two other polynomials is 7x to the third minus 4x squared plus 2x plus 4. All right. So that's the overall idea about adding polynomials. Now in number 3, we introduce the subtracting polynomial situation. Now, here's the deal. When you subtract polynomials, you have to realize that this negative sign actually applies to both terms in here. Some people do the thing where on their paper, they'll put a plus sign and a minus and then change the sign here. That usually doesn't turn out real well. What I like to do is I like to distribute that minus sign and get rid of the parentheses just like I would when you distribute a number on the outside like we did in section 1, 2. So just like you distribute numbers on the outside, I distribute that minus sign into both terms and I rewrite this as minus 4x minus 6. Again, minus 4x and then that minus 6. Now I can go ahead and combine like terms. If you combine like terms, 2x and minus 4x gives you minus 2x. Minus 6 and another minus 6 gives you a minus 12. So the final answer would be negative 2x minus 12. Now, in the next problem, problem number 4 here, we're going back to addition. Let me just have that on screen. But notice that we have, instead of exponents, we have these little subscripts. We've dealt with those before. This means our first x, this means our second x. But there's no real change in terms of how you approach this. X1 is a different variable than x2. Now, the only thing I do want to warn you about is that when you're writing these things down as a when you're writing these things down, make sure, make sure, dang it, that you write these numbers below the variables. It is a very different expression if I put the numbers as exponents versus the numbers as subscripts. So make sure that if your numbers here are in fact subscripts, write them below and to the right of the appropriate variable. So we get 5x1. This adds to 8x2. And then 6 and 10 add to 16. So we get 5x1 plus 8x2 plus 16. That's our final answer. And so again, I don't want you to write this. If you write this, you're going to get a point wrong. Okay, that 2 is a subscript, not an exponent. So x squared is not the same thing as x sub 2. X sub 2 means it's the variable x2, meaning the second variable here. X squared means you're multiplying things by itself. Hopefully that makes sense. Now that you have these tools, I want you to go ahead and try problems 5 and 6 and 7 on your own. So you can see them on this document, or you can look on your notes here. I want you to try problems 5 and 6 and 7 all on your own. Push pause on the video and then come back and check your answers. All right, so on number 5 here, what happens is when we write 3x plus minus 3x, that gives me 0 x's, or just 0. When you have minus 2 and plus 2, well, that also gives you 0. And 0 plus 0 is obviously 0. So 3x minus 2 plus negative 3x plus 2, the answer there is just 0. All right. For number 6 here, well, we're adding, so just take 4x squared and add 6x squared. You end up with 10x squared. 10x minus 5x, you get plus 5x. Minus 3 plus 9 gives you a plus 6. And that's your final answer, 10x squared plus 5x plus 6. All right, so there it is. Now notice that on 7, you're using the same polynomials, but now you're subtracting. Now, like I said, I like to do it this way. I like to go equals and then rewrite this expression, 4x squared, whoops, 4x squared plus 10x minus 3. And then I like to distribute that minus sign, so you get minus 6x squared. By the way, when you distribute the minus sign into a minus 5x, you get a plus 5x, right? Negative times negative is a positive. And then minus 9 when you distribute your minus sign into that third term there. So now once I've distributed that minus sign, now I can combine like terms a little bit easier. You're going to end up with negative 2x squared. Again, negative 2 comes from negative 6 and a positive 4. 10 and 5 give you 15, so 10x plus 5x is 15x. Minus 3 and minus 9 give you a minus 12. So your final answer is that, negative 2x squared plus 15x minus 12. And that's how we combine, how we add and subtract polynomials.